I never thought I'd be sitting here at 63 starting over. But that's what happens when you place your trust in the wrong hands, even when those hands belong to your own flesh and blood. For 15 years, I poured everything I had into raising my grandchildren after their mother vanished and my son chose his career over parenting. I gave them stability, love, and a future secured by their inheritance. Then my son Tyler cut me out of their lives completely, until he discovered I was the sole trustee of the fortune his children would inherit. That's when the son who couldn't spare a phone call suddenly couldn't stop calling. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. What he didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment ever since I first spotted the predatory gleam in his eyes when he looked at his children's trust fund. Blood may be thicker than water, but some bonds run deeper than DNA. And I was about to teach my son that loyalty isn't something you can buy and sell when convenient. My name is Margaret Reynolds, though everyone calls me Maggie. 15 years ago, my life took an unexpected turn when my doorbell rang at 2 a.m. I opened it to find my son Tyler standing there, looking disheveled, with my grandchildren Emma and Noah, just 4 and 2 at the time, fast asleep in the backseat of his car. "Mom, I need your help," he said, his voice hoarse from what I assumed was exhaustion. Diane left, just packed up and disappeared. Left a note saying she couldn't handle being a mother anymore. I invited him in, made some tea, and listened. As he explained how his wife had abandoned their family, leaving him alone with 2 small children. As the regional director for a multinational corporation, his schedule was relentless. Constant travel, endless meetings, 60-hour work weeks. "It's just for a little while," he promised, his eyes not quite meeting mine. "Just until I figure things out." That little while stretched into weeks, then months. Tyler would visit on weekends, bringing elaborate gifts for the children, taking them to amusement parks and fancy restaurants. But the actual parenting, the midnight fevers, the homework struggles, the emotional upheavals, those all fell to me. I didn't mind, really. After losing my husband Richard to cancer 5 years earlier, having Emma and Noah filling my house with laughter again gave me purpose. I converted my home office into a bedroom for Emma and transformed the sunroom into Noah's space. I learned to make dinosaur-shaped pancakes that Noah loved and braided Emma's hair just the way she liked before school. By the time a year had passed, it became clear that Tyler's temporary arrangement had become permanent. He'd moved into a sleek downtown apartment that wasn't really set up for kids, and his weekend visits grew shorter and less frequent. "You're doing such an amazing job with them, Mom," he'd say, pressing a check into my hand. "They're thriving with you in ways they never could with me." The checks were generous, I'll admit that. And when Emma and Noah's maternal grandfather passed away unexpectedly, leaving them a substantial inheritance, Tyler insisted on setting up a trust fund for their future. "They'll want for nothing," he declared proudly during one of his fleeting visits. "The best schools, travel opportunities, business investments when they're older, I'm making sure they'll have it all." What he didn't mention was that he'd named himself as co-trustee, with me as the other. What he didn't say was that he'd started viewing their inheritance as a solution to his own financial missteps. For nearly 15 years, I raised those children as my own. I attended every parent-teacher conference, cheered at every soccer game, and held Emma when her first boyfriend broke her heart. I taught Noah to fish off the dock behind our house, helped him overcome his dyslexia, and celebrated when he made honor roll for the first time. I watched them grow from frightened, confused little ones into confident teenagers. Emma, at 17 now, with her mother's artistic talent and a scholarship to Rhode Island School of Design waiting for her after graduation. Noah, at 15, brilliant with numbers and already talking about studying finance. But as the children grew older, I began noticing a change in Tyler. His visits, once merely infrequent, became calculated affairs. He'd time them perfectly to coincide with moments of achievement, award ceremonies, sports victories, swooping in to claim a share of the glory, then disappearing again. He'd call the children late at night, filling their heads with promises of exotic vacations and private school opportunities. As soon as my big promotion comes through, he'd tell them, we'll do Paris for spring break. The promotions never materialized, the vacations never happened. But Tyler's interest in the Children's Trust Fund grew increasingly evident. Have you seen how the portfolio is performing? He'd ask me over coffee during one of his rare visits. We should consider more aggressive investments. I have a colleague with some interesting opportunities. I always deflected these suggestions, keeping the trust conservatively managed as their grandfather had intended. This created a tension between us that simmered beneath the surface of our interactions. Then came Emma's 17th birthday. Tyler arrived with his new wife, Vanessa, a woman 15 years his junior with expensive tastes and calculating eyes. They brought Emma a car, a bright red convertible with a bow on top. "Dad, this is too much," Emma said, genuinely overwhelmed. "Nothing's too much for my princess," Tyler replied, throwing me a triumphant glance. After the party, while the children were showing Vanessa their achievements displayed around the house, Tyler cornered me in the kitchen. "We need to talk about the kids, Mom," he said, his voice taking on that smooth, persuasive tone he used when closing business deals. "I think it's time they came to live with me and Vanessa." I nearly dropped the plate I was washing. "What are you talking about? Their whole lives are here. Their school. Their friends. Emma graduates in a few months." "Exactly," he said, leaning against the counter. "She's heading to college soon, and Noah's almost 16. They need a father figure now more than ever. Plus, Vanessa and I just bought a beautiful house in Lakewood Heights. The school district is top tier." "Tyler, you can't just waltz back into their lives and—" "They're my children, Mom," he cut me off, his voice hardening. "I've let you play mother long enough. It's time they remember who their real parent is." The words stung like a physical blow. Play mother? Is that how he viewed the 15 years of my life I'd given to raising his children? "Besides," he continued, lowering his voice, "Vanessa and I want to start our own family. Having Emma and Noah with us will help them adjust to having younger siblings." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "And what about what Emma and Noah want?" "They'll adjust," he said dismissively. "Kids always do." That night, after Tyler and Vanessa left, I sat at my kitchen table until dawn, turning over every possibility in my mind. I knew Tyler well enough to recognize that this sudden interest in parenting wasn't motivated by love or responsibility. There was something else driving this, something to do with money. The next morning, I called Patricia Winters, the attorney who had helped establish the Children's Trust. "I need to understand exactly how this trust works," I told her, particularly about how it's managed and accessed. Patricia's explanation confirmed my suspicions. The trust was substantial, nearly $5 million that would become available to each child in stages. A third at 21, another third at 25, and the remainder at 30. Until then, distributions could only be made for education, health, and welfare with the approval of both trustees. "The problem," Patricia said carefully, "is that while you've been the active trustee all these years, Tyler has equal legal authority. If he wanted to, he could make investment changes or approve distributions that you might not agree with." "But he needs my signature, right?" I asked. "Yes, for now. But there's something else you should know." She hesitated. "The trust contains a clause that if either trustee becomes incapacitated or dies, the other assumes sole control until the children reach the distribution ages." A chill ran through me. Suddenly, Tyler's renewed interest in his children's lives, and in mine, took on an ominous new dimension. That afternoon, I walked along the shoreline of the lake behind my house, trying to clear my head. The gentle lapping of waves against the dock had always brought me peace, even in my darkest moments. I watched a pair of ospreys circling overhead, diving occasionally to snatch fish from the water. Like those birds, I needed to be precise. Calculated. I couldn't simply react to Tyler's maneuvers. I needed to anticipate them. When I returned to the house, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to my doctor, scheduling a complete physical. The second was to my bank, arranging to move my personal savings to a new account. The third was to a security company to install cameras around my property. Just as I finished the last call, my cell phone rang. Tyler. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice artificially bright. "Vanessa and I were thinking we should take you out to dinner this weekend. Show our appreciation for everything you've done." "That sounds lovely," I replied, matching his false warmth. "Where were you thinking?" "There's this great place up in the mountains, very exclusive, amazing views. We could make a day of it, go hiking, have a picnic, then dinner." My throat tightened. A remote location. Hiking. Accidents happen on mountain trails all the time. "I'd love that," I lied smoothly, "but my knees have been bothering me lately. How about that new place in town, the one by the harbor?" There was a pause, just long enough to confirm my suspicions. "Sure, Mom. Whatever you want. It's all about you." When I hung up, my hands were trembling, but my mind was clear. For 15 years, I had protected Emma and Noah from harm. I wasn't about to stop now, even if the threat came from their own father. The next day, Emma found me in the garden, weeding around my prized hydrangeas. She sat cross-legged on the grass beside me, picking at the lawn with restless fingers. "Grandma," she said finally, "Dad wants Noah and me to move in with him and Vanessa." I kept my expression neutral. "And how do you feel about that?" She shrugged, but I could see the conflict in her eyes. "I don't know, it's Dad, and he seems really excited about it. Says he wants to make up for lost time." "But?" I prompted gently. "But this is home," she said simply, gesturing to the garden, the house, the lake beyond. "Your home." I set down my trowel and took her hands in mine, dirt and all. "Emma, whatever happens, whatever you decide, I will always be your home. That doesn't change based on where you sleep at night." She nodded, blinking back tears. "There's something else, Grandma. Something weird." My heart quickened. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Last night, Dad called and asked a bunch of questions about you. If you take any medications, if you ever seem confused or forgetful, if you've had any falls recently." She looked troubled. "When I asked why he wanted to know, he said he was just concerned about you living alone as you get older." I squeezed her hands. "That's very thoughtful of him." But the way he asked, it felt strange, like he was hoping for a specific answer. "Well," I said lightly, "I'm as healthy as a horse. Your father needn't worry." After Emma went inside, I remained in the garden, my mind racing. Tyler was clearly laying groundwork, creating a narrative of an elderly mother in decline, possibly to challenge my capacity as trustee. That evening, I received a text from Tyler. "Got the kids' rooms all set up at our place. Moving van scheduled for Saturday." My first instinct was to call him, to argue, to fight. But something told me that confrontation was exactly what he wanted. Evidence of my irrational behavior or emotional instability. Instead, I simply replied, "The children's wishes should be considered." His response came quickly. "Already discussed it with them. They're excited for the change." I knew this was a lie. Noah had been in tears just hours earlier, confessing he didn't want to leave the only stable home he'd ever known. But I also knew that Tyler could be persuasive, manipulative even. especially with children eager for their father's approval. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The next morning, I made breakfast as usual, blueberry pancakes, Noah's favorite, when the doorbell rang. A courier stood on my porch with an envelope requiring my signature. Inside was a legal document, a petition for guardianship transfer, claiming that due to my advancing age and declining health, the children would be better served living with their father. Attached were affidavits from Tyler and Vanessa describing instances of my supposed forgetfulness and confusion, all fabricated. The papers trembled in my hands, not from fear but from a cold, clear anger that I hadn't felt in decades. This was the same Tyler who had dumped his traumatized children on my doorstep 15 years ago. The same Tyler who had missed school, plays, and parent-teacher conferences because they interfered with his business dinners. The same Tyler who now wanted to use his children as pawns to access their money. I called Patricia immediately. "This is just the opening move," she assured me after I explained the situation. "He's hoping you'll get emotional and make mistakes. What we need is evidence of his true motivation." "And how do we get that?" I asked. "People like Tyler always overplay their hand eventually. They get cocky, careless. We just need to be patient and observant." Patience had never been my strong suit. It was actually one of the traits I'd worked hardest to develop as a grandmother. But I understood the wisdom in Patricia's advice. This wasn't just about me. It was about protecting Emma and Noah's future. That afternoon, I sat the children down in the living room. "I received some papers from your father today," I said carefully. "He wants to change our arrangement." Noah's face crumpled immediately. "We know, Grandma. He keeps calling us, telling us how great it'll be to live with him. He promised me my own gaming setup and said Emma can have the entire third floor as an art studio." Emma, always more perceptive, studied my face. "There's more, isn't there? Something you're not telling us." I hesitated. They deserved the truth, but they also deserved to be protected from adult conflicts. "Your father and I have different views on what's best for you right now," I said finally, "and we may need to let a judge decide." "But that's crazy," Emma exclaimed. "We're old enough to decide where we want to live." "In theory, yes," I agreed. "The court will consider your preferences, but there are other factors involved." "Like what?" Noah asked. I took a deep breath. "Like your trust fund." Their expressions shifted from confusion to understanding. Both children knew about their inheritance in general terms, but I'd never burdened them with the specifics. "Dad needs money, doesn't he?" Emma said quietly. It wasn't really a question. I reached for her hand. "What I need you both to understand is that whatever happens, my only concern is protecting you and your future. That fund was established by your mother's father to secure your education and give you a solid start in life. It's not meant to solve anyone else's financial problems." Noah's eyes widened. "So Dad's trying to get control of our money? Through us?" "I don't know his intentions for certain," I said carefully. "But I want you to be aware that there may be more to his sudden interest in parenting than just missing you." The revelation hung heavy in the room. Then Noah did something that brought tears to my eyes. He moved to sit beside me on the couch and leaned his head against my shoulder, just as he had as a little boy. "We're not going anywhere, Grandma," he said firmly. Emma nodded in agreement, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She had always been the peacemaker in the family, torn between her loyalty to me and her desperate desire for her father's approval. That night, after the children went to bed, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and my old leather-bound journal. I'd started it the day the children came to live with me, documenting our journey together: first steps, lost teeth, school achievements, health issues, everything. As I flipped through the pages, a pattern emerged that I hadn't fully appreciated before. Every time Tyler made an appearance in our lives, It coincided with some financial need of his own. The weekend visits that ended with loans he never repaid. The Christmas he showed up unannounced after missing 3 holidays in a row, only to leave with a check to tide him over until his commission came through. I'd enabled his behavior, making excuses for him, never wanting the children to see their father's flaws. Now, staring at 15 years of evidence, I realized I'd failed to protect them not from his absence, but from the false hope of his periodic returns. I'd allowed them to believe in a father who saw them as assets rather than children. Well, no more. I picked up my phone and texted Tyler. "Let's talk tomorrow. Just the two of us. Coffee at the Daily Grind, 10 a.m. His reply came immediately. "Perfect. See you then." I closed my journal, a plan already forming in my mind. Tyler had always underestimated me, seen me as just a convenient caretaker, a soft-hearted mother he could manipulate at will. He thought he knew exactly how this would play out. But what my son had forgotten was that I had raised him too. I knew every manipulative tactic in his playbook because I'd watched him develop them from childhood. And unlike Tyler, I had spent the last 15 years learning patience, strategy, and the quiet strength it takes to put someone else's needs before your own. If he wanted a battle over the children's future, he would find that the gentle grandmother he thought he could steamroll had learned a thing or two about fighting for what matters. As I prepared for bed that night, I looked at the framed photo. On my nightstand, Emma and Noah at the lake last summer, their faces sun-kissed and laughing. Behind them, the water stretched blue and endless, full of possibility. "I promise," I whispered to their smiling images, "whatever it takes." The Daily Grind was bustling with the usual morning crowd when I arrived, earlier than our agreed time, of course. I'd learned long ago that positioning mattered in any confrontation with Tyler. I chose a table in the corner with my back to the wall, ordered a single cup of black tea, and waited. Tyler arrived 15 minutes late, immaculately dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of the grocery budget I managed for his children. He scanned the cafe with that practiced executive gaze before spotting me. As he approached, I noted how he'd perfected the art of looking both hurried and completely in control. "Sorry I'm late, Mom," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "Traffic was a nightmare." He leaned down to kiss my cheek, a theatrical gesture he only performed when he wanted something. "No problem," I replied mildly. "I knew to expect you on Tyler time." A flicker of annoyance crossed his face before his practiced smile returned. He ordered an elaborate espresso drink with precise specifications, then turned his full attention to me. "You're looking well," he said, his eyes scanning me as if searching for signs of deterioration he could document later. "I am well," I confirmed. "Just had my annual physical last week. Doctor says I have the constitution of someone 20 years younger." He nodded, momentarily thrown off script. "That's great to hear. I thought we should talk about these papers you had delivered," I said, placing the guardianship petition on the table between us. Quite a surprise. Tyler leaned forward, his voice dropping into what I recognized as his sincere business tone. "Mom, I know this seems sudden, but Vanessa and I have been discussing it for months. The kids need stability, a proper family structure." "Stability," I repeated, like they've had for the past 15 years in the only home they remember. He flinched slightly but recovered quickly. "That's not what I meant. You've done an amazing job. Really, above and beyond. But they need their father now. Male guidance, especially for Noah." After 15 years of occasional weekends and missed birthdays, a muscle twitched in his jaw. "I've had to work, Mom. Building a career to provide for them." "Provide what exactly?" "I've covered their daily needs with the support payments from Diane's family and my own resources. Your contributions, while appreciated, haven't been consistent." Tyler's expression hardened, This isn't about money. Isn't it? I asked quietly, looking directly into his eyes. Eyes so like his father's that it sometimes hurt to look at them. Then explain to me why you've suddenly taken such an interest in their trust. Hunt. That's not fair, he said, his voice tight. I've always been concerned about their financial future. So concerned that you tried to move $50,000 from the education portion last month for enrichment activities that never materialized? I watched his face carefully. Patricia called me about that, by the way. Tyler's expression flickered, between surprise and irritation. That nosy lawyer should mind her own business. The children's trust is her business. It's her job to protect their interests. He sighed dramatically, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. Look, I made one investment that didn't pan out. These things happen. I was trying to recoup before anyone noticed. With the children's money. It would have benefited them in the long run, he insisted. I took a sip of my tea, letting the silence stretch between us. Finally, I said, Tyler, let's be honest with each other. Your company is struggling. The Westlake project fell through, your investors are pulling out, and Vanessa's spending habits haven't adjusted to your new financial reality. His face went pale, then flushed with anger. You don't know what you're talking about. I read the business section, son, and Noah mentioned that you've been arguing with Vanessa about credit card bills. Tyler's expression hardened. So you're spying on me through my own children now? No. I'm listening to them when they talk, which is apparently more than you. Darcy folded my hands on the table. They know about this petition, by the way. They're not happy. They're children. They don't understand what's best for them. They're 17 and 15, not toddlers, and they understand perfectly well when they're being used. Tyler's carefully constructed facade began to crack. Used? I'm their father. I have every right to abandon them when it's convenient and reclaim them when there's financial advantage, I finished for him. The court might not see it that way, especially when Emma and Noah testify about their preference to stay with me. His eyes narrowed dangerously. You've poisoned them against me. I've never said a negative word about you to those children, I replied truthfully. I've made excuses for your absences, celebrated your occasional appearances, and maintained the fiction that you were always just one promotion away from being the father they deserved. Tyler looked away, unable to hold my gaze. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted to something softer, almost vulnerable, another calculated tactic I recognized from his childhood. Mom, I know I've made mistakes. I want to make it right. I want to be there for them now. Then be there. Visit more often. Take them for weekends. Build a relationship. You don't need custody to be their father, Tyler. He shook his head. It's not the same. They need to be under my roof, part of my daily life. After 15 years of absence, you want to uproot them completely? Emma graduates in a few months. Noah is thriving in his current school. Why now, Tyler? Why the urgency? He didn't answer directly, instead pivoting to another approach. Vanessa is really great with them, you know. She's excited about being a stepmother. The same Vanessa who referred to them as baggage at Christmas dinner last year? Tyler's eyes widened in surprise. They heard that? Emma did. She was bringing in dessert from the kitchen. He ran a hand over his face, momentarily dropping the polished exterior to reveal genuine frustration. For a second, I glimpsed the little boy who used to come to me when things went wrong, looking for me to fix everything. But that little boy had grown into a man who had chosen ego and ambition over family obligations time and time again. Mom, he said finally, his voice lower. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The business, the mortgage on the new house, Vanessa's expectations. I need this to work. There it was, the closest he'd come to admitting the truth. And the Children's Trust Fund would solve those problems, I stated, not as a question. His silence was confirmation enough. Tyler, I said gently, that money is for their future, not yours. Not for your business failures or your wife's shopping habits. I would pay it back, he insisted. Like all those loans over the years? I asked, keeping my voice even. He flushed again, anger replacing embarrassment. So that's how it is? You're going to fight me on this? I'm going to protect Emma and Noah. That's what I've been doing for 15 years, and I won't stop now. Even if the threat comes from you. Tyler stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his untouched coffee. You'll regret this, Mom. I have resources, connections. I'll get a psychological evaluation ordered. I'll have social workers inspecting your home. By the time I'm done, everyone will see you for what you are, a controlling old woman who can't let go. I remained seated, looking up at him calmly. Is that what your children will see? Because they'll be questioned too, Tyler. They'll be asked about your parenting, your presence in their lives, your motivations. Are you prepared for what they might say? Something uncertain flickered in his eyes. Think carefully about the path you're choosing, I continued quietly. There are things that once said can never be unsaid, wounds that never fully heal. For a moment, just a brief moment, I thought I saw a glimmer of the son I remembered, the one who once had a conscience beneath the ambition. But then his expression hardened again. I'll see you in court, he said coldly, and walked out, without looking back. I sat there long after he'd gone, my tea growing cold, my heart heavy with the certainty that this confrontation had been inevitable from the moment Tyler realized how substantial his children's inheritance was. Some part of me had always known he would come for it eventually. I just hadn't expected him to use the children themselves as leverage. When I finally left the cafe, the bright April sunshine felt like a mockery of my mood. I walked slowly, along the lakefront path, trying to clear my head and formulate a plan. The legal battle ahead would be ugly, expensive, and potentially traumatic for Emma and Noah. There had to be another way. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. How did it go with Dad? I hesitated, then replied. We disagree on what's best for you and Noah, but I promise I'm doing everything I can to protect your choices. Her response came quickly. Noah and I aren't leaving. Period. I wished it were that simple. But I knew better than anyone how persuasive Tyler could be, especially when he sensed vulnerability. And Emma, for all her strength, had a deep, unresolved hunger for her father's approval. If he applied the right pressure, played on her guilt and sense of family obligation. My phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. It was Martha from next door. Maggie, there's someone at your house, she said without preamble. A woman I don't recognize. She's taking pictures of your property. My stomach tightened. What does she look like? Mid-30s, very professional looking. Dark suit. She's got some kind of clipboard or tablet. I'll be right there. Thank you, Martha. I hurried back along the path, my mind racing. This had to be Tyler's opening move. Probably a private investigator or social worker documenting unsafe living. Conditions for his case. The speed of the response told me he'd had this planned well before our coffee meeting. As I approached my house, I saw the woman Martha had described standing at the edge of my garden, photographing the tool shed. She turned at the sound of my footsteps, her expression momentarily surprised before shifting into professional neutrality. Mrs. Reynolds? She asked, extending her hand. I'm Deborah Monahan from Family Services. I'm conducting a home evaluation as part of an ongoing case review. I didn't take her hand. Do you have proper identification and a court order authorizing this inspection? She blinked, clearly not expecting resistance. I have my department ID, of course. As for authorization, We received a report of concern regarding the living situation of 2 minors. We're obligated to investigate any such reports. A report? Filed this morning, I presume? She didn't confirm or deny, but her slight hesitation told me everything. Ms. Monahan, I said firmly, I'm familiar with proper protocols for home evaluations. They require advance notice unless there's evidence of immediate danger to a child. They also require properly filed paperwork, which I doubt you have considering my son only threatened this action 90 minutes ago. Her professional veneer cracked slightly. Your son? Please don't insult my intelligence, I interrupted. Tyler Reynolds filed this complaint, didn't he? Right after our meeting at the Daily Grind. She straightened her jacket, regaining composure. I'm not at liberty to disclose who filed the report, but I am authorized to conduct a preliminary assessment. Without proper notice or documentation? I shook my head. I don't think so. You're welcome to come back when you have the appropriate paperwork. Until then, you're trespassing on private property. Her eyes narrowed. Refusal to cooperate will be noted in my report, Mrs. Reynolds. As will your failure to follow proper procedure in mine, I replied evenly. I'll be contacting your supervisor directly. I believe that's Diane Hernandez, correct? The slight widening of her eyes told me I'd hit the mark. I'd served on enough community boards over the years to know most of the department heads in our county. This isn't over, she said, her professional demeanor slipping further. No, I agreed. It's just beginning, but it will proceed according to proper protocol, not my son's timeline. She retreated to her car, typing furiously on her phone, no doubt reporting back to Tyler. I watched, until she drove away, then went inside, my hands shaking with a mixture of anger and adrenaline. Emma and Noah were at the kitchen table, their faces pale and worried. They'd obviously witnessed the confrontation through the window. Was that because of Dad? Noah asked immediately. I considered sugarcoating the truth, then decided against it. They deserved honesty. Yes, he's trying to build a case that I'm an unfit guardian. Emma's expression hardened. That's ridiculous. Everyone knows you're the best thing that ever happened to us. Unfortunately, family court doesn't always operate on what everyone knows, I explained gently. Your father has resources and can paint a very convincing picture. Noah looked devastated. So we might have to go live with him no matter what we want. I sat down between them at the table, taking one of each of their hands in mine. Listen to me. I have spent 15 years making sure you both had stability, love, and a voice. I'm not about to stop fighting for those things now. But what if he wins? Emma whispered. Then we adapt, I said firmly. We find ways to maintain our connection. We remember that houses and court orders can't change the bond we've built. I squeezed their hands. But we're a long way from that outcome. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my doorbell ringing insistently. It was barely 7 a.m. I threw on a robe and hurried downstairs, half expecting to find another social worker or process server. Instead, I opened the door to find Vanessa, standing on my porch, impeccably dressed in designer casual wear that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Her expression was a carefully constructed mask of concern. Helen, she said, stepping forward as if expecting to be invited in. We need to talk. It's Maggie, I corrected her mildly, not moving from the doorway. And I think Tyler and I said everything necessary yesterday. Her perfect smile tightened. This isn't about yesterday. It's about finding a solution that works for everyone. I studied her face. Young, beautiful, carefully maintained. I'd never seen Vanessa without her makeup precisely applied, her clothing strategically selected to display her wealth and status. In the 3 years she'd been married to Tyler, she'd never once asked about the children's interests or achievements. The doorstep isn't the place for this conversation, I finally said, stepping back to allow her entry. but we'll need to keep our voices down. The children are still sleeping. She followed me to the kitchen, her eyes scanning my home with barely disguised judgment. I busied myself making coffee, more to occupy my hands than from any desire to play hostess. "Charming place," she said in a tone that suggested the opposite. "So, rustic." I didn't take the bait. "What can I do for you, Vanessa?" She perched on one of my kitchen stools, arranging herself like a model posing for a photo shoot. I thought we could talk woman to woman, mother to, well, grandmother. About this unnecessary conflict Tyler seems determined to pursue. She sighed dramatically. Men can be so brutish in their approach, don't you think? All ultimatums and legal threats. I set a mug of coffee in front of her. "And you have a more elegant solution?" "I believe I do." She took a delicate sip from the mug, then set it aside with the slightest wrinkle of her nose. "Tyler is being driven by pride and ego. He feels threatened by your relationship with the children, the way they look up to you, depend on you. And you think that's unreasonable after 15 years as their primary caregiver?" "Of course not," she said smoothly. "But men aren't always reasonable, are they? Especially when their authority is challenged." I leaned against the counter, watching her carefully. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A compromise." She smiled, displaying perfect white teeth. "The children stay with you until Emma graduates. That's just a few months away. Then Noah comes to live with us for the school year, spending summers and holidays with you. Emma can decide her own arrangements, being nearly an adult." I considered her offer, trying to discern the hidden agenda. "And the trust fund?" A flicker of something, irritation, impatience, crossed her face before disappearing behind another practiced smile. "Tyler would remain co-trustee, of course, but we would establish a formal agreement about how distributions are approved, with a neutral third party to mediate any disagreements." "A third party of your choosing, I presume?" She waved a manicured hand dismissively. "Details to be worked out. The important thing is avoiding a messy court battle that would only hurt the children." There it was, the manipulation wrapped in concern. I'd seen Tyler use the same tactic countless times. "You seem very invested in this compromise, Vanessa," I observed, "considering you've shown minimal interest in the children until now." Her smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened. "I'm trying to keep our family from being torn apart by unnecessary drama." "Our family," I repeated. Interesting choice of words from someone who referred to Emma and Noah as baggage. She had the grace to flush slightly. That was taken out of context. I was simply expressing that blended families present unique challenges, like the challenge of accessing their trust fund without my signature. The pretense dropped entirely then, her expression turning cold. "Let's cut the maternal guardian act, shall we? We both know what this is really about. You've spent 15 years playing the martyr, the selfless grandmother stepping in where others failed. It's become your identity. You're terrified of letting go because without those kids, you're just a lonely old woman with nothing left." I didn't take the bait. "Is that Tyler's assessment or yours? Does it matter? It's the truth." She stood, smoothing her designer jeans. "Tyler was too soft. Yesterday, too sentimental. He still sees you as his mother. I see you more clearly." "And what do you see, Vanessa?" "An obstacle." Her voice was flat, all pretense gone. "One that needs to be removed." "By any means necessary," I asked quietly. "By whatever means work." She picked up her purse, an expensive leather thing that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "The offer stands, for now. Let the children finish the school year here, then Noah comes with us. We share trustee responsibilities with proper oversight. Everyone saves face. And if I decline? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then Tyler proceeds with the guardianship petition, the psychological evaluation, the home inspections. We document every minor lapse, every moment of forgetfulness, every outdated appliance or loose step in this charming old house. We create a narrative of a well-meaning but increasingly incapable grandmother who can't provide proper supervision for two teenagers. That would devastate the children, I said. That would be your choice, not ours. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Be smart, Margaret. Take the deal. Let everyone walk away with dignity. The alternative won't be pretty, for any of you. With that, she turned and walked out, leaving her coffee untouched and a chill in the air that had nothing to do with the temperature. I stood frozen in my kitchen, her threats echoing in my ears. She had made one thing abundantly clear. This wasn't just Tyler being opportunistic. This was a calculated, coordinated attack on my guardianship, and by extension, on the children's financial security. The sound of footsteps on the stairs broke my reverie. Emma appeared in the doorway, her hair tousled from sleep, her expression troubled. Was that Vanessa I heard? She asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice immediately. Emma's face darkened. What did she want? To offer a compromise, I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. One that conveniently gets your brother under their roof by fall. And separates us, Emma concluded sharply. Divide and conquer, right? Sometimes I forgot how perceptive she was, how quickly she could cut through pretense to the heart of an issue. Emma had always been that way, even as a small child. Something like that, I acknowledged. She came fully into the kitchen, pouring herself a cup of the coffee I'd made. You know they're just after the money, right? Dad's company is in trouble. Someone at school, their dad works with Dad, said there were layoffs last month and the Westlake project is basically dead. I raised an eyebrow. You've been investigating? She shrugged, looking suddenly younger than her 17 years. I wanted to understand why he's doing this now. Why, after all this time, he suddenly wants to play daddy. The bitterness in her voice broke my heart. For years, I'd protected them from the truth about their father's motivations, making excuses, preserving their image of him. Now, watching Emma's disillusionment, I wondered if I'd done them a disservice. Emma, I said carefully, your father loves you in his way. It's just complicated by other factors. You mean he loves what we represent, access to money he didn't earn, she said bluntly. I couldn't bring myself to confirm it directly. People can have mixed motivations. She took a long sip of coffee, then set the mug down with a decisive click. Well, his motivations don't matter. I'm not going anywhere, and neither is Noah. It might not be that simple, I cautioned. Why not? I'm 17. In a few months, I'll be a legal adult. And Noah is 15 and subject to guardianship determinations. And while your preferences would be considered by a court, they're not the only factor. Emma's face flushed with frustration. So what? We just surrender? Let them manipulate the system and take him away? No, I said firmly. We fight smart. We gather evidence. We build our case methodically. Her expression shifted from anger to determination. Tell me what to do. I'll help. I studied her face, so young still, yet carrying a maturity forced upon her by circumstances beyond her control. I'd spent 15 years trying to protect her from adult concerns, but perhaps it was time to acknowledge that she was already shouldering them anyway. First, I said, we need to document everything. Every interaction with your father and Vanessa, every promise made and broken, every questionable request or statement, dates, times, exact wording if possible. She nodded, already reaching for Her phone. I can start a note file. Noah can help too. Second, we need to secure the trust documentation. I have copies, but we should make sure there's a set with Patricia as well, in case anything happens to mine. You think they'd steal documents? Emma asked, eyes widening. I think they're desperate, and desperate people make poor choices. I hesitated, then added, like that social worker yesterday. She was here less than 2 hours after my meeting with your father. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. Emma's expression hardened with resolve. What else? We need to be prepared for more unexpected visits. Officials, evaluators, maybe even police responding to anonymous concerns. The house needs to be immaculate, all maintenance up to date, nothing that could be twisted into evidence of neglect. I'll talk to Noah. We'll step up on chores, make sure everything's perfect. I reached out to touch her cheek gently. Emma, I don't want you and Noah living in fear, watching every word, inspecting every corner. That's not a healthy home environment. Neither is living with Dad and Vanessa, she countered fiercely. Before I could respond, my phone pinged with a text message. It was from Patricia. Tyler just filed for emergency temporary custody. Hearing set for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Call me immediately. I tried to keep my expression neutral, but Emma must have seen something change in my face. What is it? She demanded. I hesitated, torn between protecting her and respecting her right to know. Your father has escalated the legal situation. There's a hearing tomorrow. What kind of hearing? Emergency custody, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Emma's face drained of color. Can he do that? Just rip us away without warning? He can try, I said. But emergency orders require evidence of imminent danger or harm. They're typically reserved for cases of abuse or severe neglect. But there isn't any, she protested. No, there isn't. Which means he's either fabricated something or is planning to present the situation in extremely misleading terms. I picked up my phone. I need to call Patricia. Emma wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking very young. Grandma, I'm scared. I set the phone down and pulled her into a hug, holding her close like I had when she was small and woke from nightmares. I know, sweetheart. I am too. But fear doesn't help us think clearly. And clear thinking is what we need most right now. She nodded against my shoulder, then straightened, wiping quickly at her eyes. I'll wake Noah. He should know what's happening. As she headed upstairs, I sank into a kitchen chair, the weight of what we were facing settling over me like a physical burden. Tyler was moving faster and more aggressively than I'd anticipated. The emergency hearing meant he was claiming some immediate threat to the children's safety or welfare, a claim that would have to be dramatic enough to convince a judge to act without full investigation. What had he told them? What story had he and Vanessa concocted that was so urgent it warranted emergency intervention? I dialed Patricia's number with shaking fingers, my mind racing through possibilities. Had they claimed abuse, neglect, mental instability? Would they bring up my age as a factor, suggesting I was no longer physically capable of caring for teenagers? As the phone rang, I glanced around my kitchen, the warm, lived-in heart of the home I'd created for Emma and Noah. The refrigerator was covered with their artwork, school schedules, and achievement certificates. The growth chart marked on the doorframe showed 15 years of physical development. The slightly scarred table had hosted thousands of meals, homework sessions, board games, and late-night conversations. This was their home, their sanctuary, and I was about to fight with everything I had to keep it that way. Patricia arrived at my house an hour later, carrying a thick leather briefcase and wearing an expression that told me she'd canceled other appointments to be here. Her usual crisp professionalism was tinged with genuine concern as she settled at my kitchen table, spreading documents before her. Emergency custody petitions require evidence of immediate danger, she explained, pushing, her glasses up on her nose. Tyler is claiming several things: that you've been exhibiting signs of early dementia, that you've been leaving the children alone overnight while you wander, and most seriously, that you've been misappropriating funds from their trust for personal expenses. I stared at her, momentarily speechless. That's absurd. All of it. She nodded grimly. Of course it is. But he's submitted affidavits, one from himself, one from Vanessa, and one from a Dr. Raymond Kent claiming he observed concerning behavior during a recent encounter with you. I've never met anyone named Dr. Kent in my life, I said, bewildered. Patricia's mouth tightened. He's a psychiatrist who specializes in geriatric care. According to his statement, he observed you at the daily grind yesterday exhibiting paranoid tendencies and disorganized thinking patterns. He claims you approached him, thinking he was someone else, and became agitated when corrected. The pieces clicked into place with nauseating clarity. There was an older gentleman at a nearby table, gray hair, glasses. Tyler greeted him. Briefly on his way out, I shook my head in disbelief. This was premeditated. He brought this doctor to observe me without my knowledge. It gets worse, Patricia said quietly. The social worker who came here yesterday, Deborah Monahan, has filed a report claiming you were hostile, confused, and refused a standard welfare check. She never identified herself properly or presented any authorization, I protested. And she was trespassing, taking photographs of my property without consent. I believe you, Patricia assured me. But the court's first concern will be the children's immediate safety. Tyler has crafted a narrative designed to raise serious red flags: cognitive decline, financial mismanagement, paranoia, isolation of the children from their father. My stomach churned with a mixture of fear and rage. This is all fabricated. He's manipulating the system to get control of their trust. I know that, Patricia said firmly. But we need to convince a judge in less than 24 hours. Noah appeared in the doorway, his face pale but determined. Can we help? Emma and I can testify, right? Tell them Grandma's not crazy and Dad's just after our money? Patricia offered him a gentle smile. Your perspectives will be valuable, Noah, but there are protocols about minors testifying in family court, especially in emergency proceedings. This is our lives, he insisted, stepping fully into the kitchen. They can't just decide everything, without even talking to us. Unfortunately, they can, Patricia said, her voice softening. The system is designed to prioritize child safety above all else, which is normally a good thing. But in this case, it's being weaponized against your grandmother. Emma joined her brother, her expression fiercely protective. So we have no say at all. That's not right. Patricia considered them both for a moment. I can request that the judge speak to you in chambers. A private conversation without your father or grandmother present. It's not guaranteed, but given. Your ages, it's a reasonable request. Then that's what we need to do, Emma said firmly. I reached for her hand. If the judge agrees to speak with you, you need to be completely honest. Not just about your preferences, but about everything you've observed and experienced. No embellishing, no exaggerating. Just the truth. Even if it makes Dad look bad? Noah asked quietly. The question carried the weight of 15 years of complicated emotions. The love and loyalty children naturally feel toward a parent, even one who had been largely absent. I'd spent those years preserving their relationship. With Tyler, never speaking ill of him, making excuses for his absences. Now I was asking them to do the opposite. Even then, I said gently, the truth is our strongest weapon right now. Patricia nodded in agreement, then turned back to her documents. We need to compile evidence rapidly. Financial records showing proper management of the trust. Medical records confirming your excellent health. Statements from teachers, neighbors, anyone who can attest to the stable home environment you've provided. Martha next door, Noah suggested immediately. She's known us forever. And Mr. Delaney from school? Emma added. He's been my art teacher for 4 years. He could talk about how you've never missed a parent-teacher conference or art show. Patricia made notes. Good. Anyone else? Community connections, regular activities that demonstrate ongoing social engagement? The library book club? I offered. I've been a member for 10 years, and the community garden committee. Perfect. Patricia looked up. Now, about last night and this morning, when exactly did you learn about the emergency filing? From your text just before I called you. She frowned. So you had no advance warning, no legal notice served. Nothing, I confirmed. Just Vanessa showing up this morning with a thinly veiled threat. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Tell me exactly what she said. I recounted the conversation as precisely as I could, including Vanessa's final warning about creating a narrative of an incapable grandmother. Patricia's expression grew increasingly troubled. This suggests premeditation and bad faith, she said. They're not just seeking what they believe is best for the children. They're explicitly threatening to manufacture evidence. Can we record future conversations? Emma asked. Get them to repeat those threats? Oregon is a one-party consent state for recordings, Patricia confirmed. But be careful. Don't try to entrap them or ask leading questions. Just let them talk naturally. Noah's face had taken on a determined expression I recognized, the same look he got before math competitions or difficult tests. I have an idea, he said slowly. Dad always calls me on Tuesday nights to check in. It's the one consistent thing he does. He's probably going to call tonight, even with everything happening. And? Patricia prompted. And he always talks about how things will be better once we're living with him and Vanessa. He makes promises about what he'll buy us, what we'll do together. Noah glanced at me apologetically. I've never told you everything he says because I didn't want to upset you. I reached out to squeeze his hand. It's okay, Noah. I understand. He turned back to Patricia. If I record tonight's call, I bet he'll say something we can use. He always does. Patricia considered this carefully. That could be valuable. But Noah, don't push him or try to get specific admissions. Just have a normal conversation. Noah nodded solemnly. I can do that. What about the trust documentation? I asked Patricia. Tyler is claiming I've misused funds, but every expenditure has been properly documented and approved. I'll subpoena the complete trust records, she assured me. But it would help if you could compile your own records of major expenses related to the children. School tuition, medical care, extracurricular activities. Anything that shows the trust has been used exactly as intended. I nodded, already mentally cataloging years of careful financial management. I keep everything. It's all in my home office. Emma stood suddenly. The photo albums and scrapbooks, Grandma. We should bring those too. For the hearing? Patricia asked, looking confused. To show the judge our lives, Emma explained passionately. 15 years of birthdays, holidays, school events, everything Dad missed and Grandma was there for. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? Patricia smiled, her professional demeanor softening. They can be powerful evidence of a stable, loving home environment. Excellent thinking, Emma. As Emma and Noah hurried off to gather materials, Patricia lowered her voice. Maggie, you should prepare yourself. Tomorrow will be difficult. Tyler and Vanessa will be presenting you as cognitively impaired, financially exploitative, and potentially dangerous to the children. It will be painful to hear. I know, I said quietly. But I've faced worse for these children. The judge will likely appoint a guardian ad litem, an independent advocate to investigate and represent the children's interests. That person will have significant influence on the final custody determination. How quickly does that happen? It varies. Could be appointed tomorrow, could take a week. The emergency hearing is just to determine temporary custody until a full investigation can be completed. The word temporary sent a chill through me. Even a brief separation could be traumatic for Emma and Noah, not to mention giving Tyler and Vanessa time alone with them to apply pressure and manipulation. "What are our chances tomorrow?" I asked bluntly. Patricia hesitated, then opted for honesty. Emergency petitions typically favor the party claiming danger exists. The judicial philosophy tends toward better safe than sorry, remove children from potential harm while the facts are sorted out. So they have the advantage. In terms of procedural bias, yes, she admitted. But we have truth on our side, and possibly the testimony of the children themselves. That counts for a lot. After Patricia left with copies of financial records and medical documents, I found Emma and Noah in the living room surrounded by photo albums and scrapbooks. They were selecting images that captured our life together. Noah's science fair victory, Emma's first art exhibition, countless birthdays and holidays, ordinary moments of homework and movie nights and summer adventures. "Look at this one," Noah said softly, pointing to a photograph taken at the lake 3 summers ago. We were all on the dock, sun-bronzed and laughing, having just learned to water ski. Dad was supposed to join us that weekend. He canceled last minute because of, some work emergency. He missed so much, Emma murmured, turning pages of carefully preserved memories. "I used to be so angry about it. Then I just got sad. Now I'm kind of glad he wasn't around more, you know? He wouldn't have made these moments better." The simple truth in her words brought tears to my eyes. For years, I'd worried that I wasn't enough for them, that they needed their father despite his flaws and absences. I'd never considered that his presence might have diminished rather than enriched the life we'd built together. The ringing of the doorbell interrupted our reflection. I glanced at the security camera feed on my phone and felt my heart sink. Outside stood Deborah Monahan, the same social worker from yesterday, along with a uniformed police officer. "Stay. Calm," I told Emma and Noah. "Let me handle this." I opened the door with a composure I didn't entirely feel. "Ms. Monahan, back so soon?" She offered a tight smile. "Mrs. Reynolds, I've returned with proper documentation and Officer Carlson to conduct a welfare check on the minor children in your care." I examined the papers she extended, noting that they appeared in order this time. "May I see your identification?" "As well, please. Both of you." The social worker and officer produced their credentials, which I photographed with my phone before stepping back. "You may come in. The children are in the living room." Officer Carlson, a middle-aged man with a neutral expression, nodded politely. "Ma'am, this is just a standard check. Nothing to be concerned about." I didn't bother pointing out that there was nothing standard about their timing or the circumstances. Instead, I led them to the living room where Emma and Noah sat amid their photo albums, watchful and wary. "Emma, Noah, this is Ms. Monahan from Family Services and Officer Carlson. They're here to speak with you briefly." Deborah Monahan smiled with professional warmth that didn't reach her eyes. "Hello, Emma, Noah. I'd like to ask you a few questions about your life here with your grandmother. Officer Carlson is just here as a standard procedure." Emma straightened, meeting the woman's gaze directly. "Are you here because our father filed for emergency custody?" Ms. Monahan blinked, clearly surprised by the directness. "I'm here to ensure your well-being and safety." "We're fine," Noah said firmly. "Better than fine. This is our home, and we want to stay here with our grandmother." "I understand," Ms. Monahan said smoothly. "But I need to ask some specific questions. Would you be comfortable speaking with me privately? One at a time?" "No," Emma said immediately. "Whatever questions you have, you can ask us together, right here." The social worker's smile tightened. "It's generally better to—" "We know our rights," Emma interrupted. "We're old enough to have our preferences considered, and we prefer to answer questions together with our grandmother present." Officer Carlson shifted uncomfortably while Ms. Monahan regrouped. "Very well. First, do you feel safe in this home?" "Completely," they answered in unison. Has your grandmother ever left you alone overnight without proper supervision or care? Never, Noah said emphatically. She's always either here or arranges for Martha next door to check on us if she has to go somewhere, which is rare. Does your grandmother ever seem confused? Forgetful about important matters? Unable to recognize familiar people or places? Emma laughed, the sound sharp with incredulity. Are you serious? Grandma is the most mentally sharp person I know. She helps me with calculus homework. She remembers every appointment, every schedule detail, every preference we have. Have you ever observed your grandmother acting strangely? Perhaps wandering at night or becoming disoriented? Noah's expression darkened. The only strange thing is this questioning. Our dad is lying to you, and you know it. Ms. Monahan's professional veneer cracked slightly. I'm simply doing my job, Noah. No, Emma countered. You're helping our father build a false narrative because he wants control of our trust fund. He doesn't care about us. He's proven that for 15 years by being absent. He only started showing interest when he realized how much money was involved. The social worker looked taken aback by Emma's directness. She glanced at Officer Carlson, who maintained his neutral expression. Those are serious allegations, she said carefully. Yes, they are, I interjected. Just as serious as the false claims being made against me. Ms. Monahan turned her attention to me. Mrs. Reynolds, do you believe your son would fabricate concerns about your mental health? I know he would, I replied evenly, especially when there are millions of dollars at stake. Her eyebrows rose. Millions? The Children's Trust Fund, I explained, which Tyler can only access if he gains custody and removes me as trustee, a fact that I imagine was omitted from whatever report prompted this visit. Officer Carlson spoke for the first time. Ma'am, are you saying there's a financial motivation behind the custody petition? I'm stating it explicitly, I confirmed. My son has made multiple attempts to access the children's trust funds for his own purposes. When I prevented those attempts, he suddenly developed concerns about my cognitive abilities and parenting skills after 15 years of allowing me to raise his children while he pursued his career. The officer and social worker exchanged glances. May I ask what you're doing with all these photo albums? Ms. Monahan asked, gesturing to the materials spread across the coffee table. Preparing evidence for tomorrow's hearing, Emma answered. Immediately. 15 years of documentation showing who was actually present for our lives and who wasn't. Ms. Monahan nodded slowly, then stood. I think we have enough for an initial assessment. We may need to follow up with additional questions. You're welcome to return with proper notification, I said pointedly. Our attorney will be happy to facilitate any further inquiries. After they left, Noah collapsed onto the couch with a shaky exhalation. That was intense. You both did wonderfully, I assured them, sitting between them and taking their hands. You were honest, direct, and dignified. Emma leaned her head against my shoulder. Do you think it helped? I think you gave that social worker something to think about, I said truthfully. Whether it changes anything remains to be seen. We spent the remainder of the day preparing for the hearing, organizing documents, selecting photographs, rehearsing calm, factual responses to potential questions. I called Martha next door and my friend Susan from the book club, both of whom immediately agreed to provide statements about my mental acuity and dedication to the children. That evening, true to his pattern, Tyler called Noah. With a look of determination beyond his 15 years, Noah answered on speakerphone with his recording app running. Hey, Dad, he said, his voice remarkably casual given the circumstances. Noah! Tyler's voice boomed with false cheer. How's my boy? Ready for the big change? What big change? Noah asked, though we all knew exactly what Tyler meant. Moving. In with us, of course. Vanessa's already decorated your room. Gaming setup, new furniture, the works. Way better than that cramped space at Grandma's, right? Noah caught my eye, his expression pained. I like my room here. Tyler's voice shifted to a coaxing tone I recognized all too well. Sure, it has. Sentimental value. But you're getting older now, need more space, more freedom. We get that. That's why we've set aside the entire basement rec room as your personal domain. State-of-the-art entertainment system, private bathroom. You'll love it. What about Emma? Noah asked carefully. Emma's welcome too, of course. Though with college coming up, she might not be around much anyway. Noah frowned slightly. So, is this all happening because of the emergency hearing tomorrow? There was a brief pause before Tyler answered. That's just a formality, son. Some paperwork to make everything official. Nothing for you to worry about. But Grandma said you're claiming she has dementia or something. That's not true, Dad. Tyler's voice hardened slightly. Your grandmother is getting older, Noah. Sometimes she doesn't realize when things are slipping. It's natural, nothing to be ashamed of. But it's not fair to either of you to have that responsibility. She doesn't have dementia, Noah insisted. She's completely fine. A frustrated sigh came through the speaker. Look, there are things you don't understand about adult situations. Your grandmother has been mismanaging certain resources that belong to you and Emma. I'm just trying to protect what's rightfully yours. You mean our trust? Fund? Noah asked bluntly. Another pause, longer this time. Who told you about that? Grandma. She's always been honest with us about it. She says it's for our education and future. Well, yes, technically, Tyler said, his tone shifting to something smoother, more persuasive. But it could be doing so much more. That money sitting in conservative investments is a wasted opportunity. With the right management, my management, we could double or triple the principal before you even start college. Noah looked at me, his expression showing that Tyler was saying exactly what we'd anticipated. But isn't the trust supposed to be secure, not risky? There's risk, and then there's calculated opportunity, Tyler responded, warming to his favorite subject. I have connections, investment channels your grandmother could never access. Why settle for 5% returns when we could be seeing 20, 30%? And you need custody of us to make these investments? Tyler's voice cooled noticeably. I need custody, because it's time you had a proper father figure in your daily life. The financial aspects are secondary, but important enough that you're lying about Grandma's mental health, Noah said, his voice shaking slightly with suppressed emotion. Watch your tone, Tyler snapped. I'm still your father, and I'm not lying. I'm expressing legitimate concerns that multiple professionals share. Professionals you paid to agree with you, Noah muttered. That's enough, Tyler said sharply. I see your grandmother has been poisoning you against me. All the more reason for this change. We'll sort everything out after the hearing. Dad, Noah said, his voice suddenly younger, more vulnerable. Why now? Why after 15 years do you suddenly want us to live with you? There was a pause, and when Tyler spoke again, his voice had softened into something almost sincere. Because I've missed too much already. Because Vanessa has helped me see what's important. Because I want to be the father you deserve. For a moment, I saw doubt flicker across Noah's face, the eternal hope of a child wanting to believe the best of their parent. And, Tyler continued, because I'm in a position now to give you everything you've ever wanted. The best schools, travel opportunities, connections that will set you up for life. With the right management of your resources, our family resources, sky's the limit, buddy. And there it was, the truth slipping out among the manipulations. Family resources, as if the children's inheritance was a communal asset he had every right to control. Noah's expression hardened again. I have to go, Dad. Grandma's calling me for dinner. Noah, wait. But Noah had already ended the call and stopped the recording. He looked up at me, his young face etched with a mixture of pain and resolve. Did I get enough? He asked quietly. I pulled him into a hug, holding him tightly against the hurt I knew he was feeling. More than enough. You did perfectly. Emma, who had been listening silently from the doorway, joined our embrace. He's not going to win, she said fiercely. We won't let him. That night, after the children had gone to bed, I sat alone in my kitchen, turning a cup of tea between my palms. Tomorrow would test us all in ways we'd never been tested before. Tyler would present a compelling narrative of concern, backed by seemingly professional opinions. He had resources, connections, and the advantage of being the biological parent. All I had was the truth, the children's testimony, and 15 years of unwavering dedication. I thought about the road that had brought us here. That late-night doorbell, 2 frightened children, a son who had chosen career over family. I'd stepped in without hesitation, rearranging my life around their needs, finding new purpose in their growth and happiness. Had I made mistakes? Certainly. Perhaps I'd been too accommodating of Tyler's absences, too willing to make excuses for his failures. Perhaps I should have seen this coming sooner, should have taken steps to protect the children's inheritance more aggressively. But I had given them stability, consistency, and unconditional love. I had shown up, every day, every crisis, every triumph, when their father had not. That had to count for something in a system designed to protect children's best interests. As I finally headed to bed, I paused at each of their doors, Emma's with its collection of art exhibition flyers taped neatly in rows, Noah's with its periodic table poster and star chart. Beyond those doors slept the 2 people I loved most. In this world, the children who had become the center of my universe. Whatever it takes, I whispered my promise to the quiet hallway. Whatever it takes. The courtroom felt smaller than I expected, more intimate and somehow more threatening for it. Patricia and I sat at one table, while Tyler and his attorney, a polished man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as James Whitfield, occupied the table across the aisle. Vanessa sat in the gallery directly behind them, immaculately styled in a conservative blue dress that made her look like the perfect stepmother from a family sitcom. Emma and Noah were absent, waiting in a separate room in case the judge decided to speak with them. The thought of them sitting alone, anxious and uncertain, made my heart ache. Judge Miranda Calloway entered, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She reviewed the documents, before her with methodical care, occasionally glancing up to study our faces. This is an emergency custody hearing regarding Emma Reynolds, age 17, and Noah Reynolds, age 15, she stated, her voice neutral but authoritative. The petitioner, Tyler Reynolds, is requesting temporary custody pending a full evaluation, citing concerns about the children's current guardian, Margaret Reynolds. She looked directly at Tyler. Mr. Reynolds, you are the biological father of these children, correct? Tyler stood, the picture of concerned parenthood in his tailored, navy suit. Yes, Your Honor. And you've allowed them to remain in your mother's care for... She consulted her notes. 15 years? Yes, Your Honor. After their mother abandoned them, I was in a difficult position professionally. My mother graciously offered to help temporarily, and that arrangement extended longer than anticipated. I see, Judge Calloway said, her expression unreadable. And what has changed to prompt this emergency petition? Tyler's attorney rose smoothly. Your Honor, if I may. In recent months, Mr. Reynolds has observed deeply concerning changes in his mother's behavior and decision-making that place his children at risk. These observations have been corroborated by medical and social work professionals, as detailed in our filing. Judge Calloway nodded. So noted. Ms. Winters, your response? Patricia stood, her posture straight and confident. Your Honor, we categorically deny all allegations of cognitive impairment, financial impropriety, or any form of neglect. Mrs. Reynolds has provided a stable, loving home for these children for 15 years, maintaining their education, health, and emotional well-being with exemplary care. We believe this sudden petition is motivated not by genuine concern for the children, but by Mr. Reynolds' interest in gaining control of their substantial trust fund, of which Mrs. Reynolds is currently co-trustee. Tyler's attorney scoffed audibly. Your Honor, these baseless allegations about financial motivation are precisely the kind of paranoid thinking that concerns us about Mrs. Reynolds' current state of mind. I'll determine what's baseless in my courtroom, Mr. Whitfield, Judge Ziar, Calloway said sharply. She turned to Patricia. Do you have evidence supporting your claim about financial motivation? Yes, Your Honor. Patricia presented the court with copies of the trust documentation, records of Tyler's attempts to access funds, and, most importantly, the recording of his call with Noah from the previous evening. With the court's permission, we'd like to play a brief audio recording of Mr. Reynolds speaking with his son last night. Tyler leaned toward his attorney, whispering urgently. Mr. Whitfield stood immediately. Your Honor, we object to any recording made without my client's knowledge or consent. Oregon is a one-party consent state for recordings, Your Honor, Patricia countered. Noah Reynolds was a participant in this conversation and consented to its recording. The judge considered this briefly. Objection overruled. I'll hear the recording. As Noah's voice filled the courtroom, followed by Tyler's enthusiastic promises about gaming setups and basement rec rooms, I watched the judge's expression. Her eyes narrowed slightly when Tyler began talking about family resources and his plans to move the trust into higher-yield investments. When the recording ended, Tyler was visibly fuming, his carefully crafted image of concerned father cracking around the edges. His attorney attempted damage control. Your Honor, this recording has clearly been taken out of context. Mr. Reynolds was simply expressing his desire to provide the best opportunities for his children. Judge Calloway made a note without commenting. I'd like to address the medical concerns. You've submitted an affidavit from Dr. Raymond Kent suggesting Mrs. Reynolds exhibits signs of cognitive impairment. Dr. Kent, are you present? A distinguished-looking man in his 60s stood from the gallery. Yes, Your Honor. Please approach. Once Dr. Kent reached the front, Judge Calloway fixed him with a penetrating stare. Your affidavit states you observed Mrs. Reynolds exhibiting paranoid tendencies and disorganized thinking during an encounter at the Daily Grind coffee shop. Was this a scheduled clinical evaluation, doctor? The psychiatrist shifted uncomfortably. Not formally, no. I was asked by Mr. Reynolds to observe Mrs. Reynolds in a natural setting to avoid causing her distress with a formal evaluation. So you conducted a psychiatric assessment without the subject's knowledge or consent? It was an informal observation only, Your Honor, he clarified hastily, based on behaviors consistent with early cognitive decline. Patricia rose again. Your Honor, if I may, we have Mrs. Reynolds' complete medical records from her primary physician, Dr. Elaine Chen, including cognitive assessments performed just last week showing absolutely no impairment. Judge Calloway accepted the medical records, reviewing them briefly. Dr. Kent, have you reviewed these medical records? No, Your Honor. Have you ever formally examined Mrs. Reynolds? No, Your Honor. Have you spoken with her primary care physician? No, Your Honor. The judge's expression hardened. So you provided an affidavit suggesting cognitive impairment based solely on observing a woman in a coffee shop without her knowledge, without reviewing her medical history, and without consulting her treating physician. Dr. Kent's professional demeanor faltered. I was asked to provide my expert observation. You were paid to provide a favorable opinion for the petitioner, Judge Calloway interrupted, her tone leaving no room for argument. This court takes a very dim view of such practices, Doctor. You may step back. Tyler's attorney tried to recover. Your Honor, the social worker's report also indicates concerning behavior. Yes, let's address that. The judge interrupted, turning her attention to a document before her. Ms. Monahan reports that Mrs. Reynolds was hostile and defensive during a home visit. Ms. Monahan, are you present? Deborah Monahan stood from the gallery. Yes, Your Honor. Please approach. Once she did, Judge Calloway continued. Your report indicates you conducted an initial visit without proper documentation or advance notice. Is that correct? I was responding to an urgent concern, Your Honor. Filed by Mr. Reynolds immediately after meeting with his mother, the judge noted. Did you find any evidence of immediate danger to the children during either of your visits? No, Your Honor, but did you observe any signs of neglect, abuse, or unsafe living conditions? No, Your Honor. Did both children express a clear preference to remain with their grandmother? Deborah hesitated, then answered reluctantly. Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Ms. Monahan. You may step back. Judge Calloway turned her attention to me for the first time. Mrs. Reynolds, I'd like to hear directly from you. How would you characterize your relationship with your grandchildren? I stood, my voice steadier than I expected. They are the center of my world, Your Honor. When they came to me 15 years ago, they were confused, frightened children who had lost their mother and, functionally, their father as well. I've dedicated my life to giving them stability, love, and the tools they need to build healthy, successful futures. I've attended every school conference, doctor's appointment, and extracurricular event. I've helped them navigate childhood illnesses, adolescent struggles, and the complex emotions that come with parental abandonment. And the trust fund in question? Established by their maternal grandfather before his death, I've managed it conservatively, focusing on education expenses and preserving the principal for their future needs. College, graduate school, perhaps a home purchase someday. Every expenditure is documented and aligned with the trust's stated purpose. And your son's sudden interest in custody? I hesitated, not wanting to speak ill of Tyler but unwilling to pretend. My son has experienced financial difficulties recently. His business investments have faltered, and his lifestyle expenses with his new wife exceed his current income. He has made multiple attempts to access the children's trust funds for purposes not permitted by the trust guidelines. Tyler stood, abruptly. That's a lie. I'm their father. I have every right to— Mr. Reynolds, Judge Calloway interrupted sharply. You will remain seated and silent until addressed by this court. Outbursts will not be tolerated. Tyler subsided, his face flushed with anger. Vanessa reached forward to squeeze his shoulder, her perfect composure briefly cracking to reveal the tension beneath. Judge Calloway turned to Patricia. I understand. The children are present in the building? Yes, Your Honor, Patricia confirmed. They've both expressed a strong desire to speak with you. The judge nodded. I'll speak with them in chambers. This court will recess for 30 minutes. As the judge exited, Tyler leaned across the aisle toward me, his voice low and venomous. You've turned them against me, my own children. You did that yourself, I replied quietly. Every missed birthday, every broken promise, every time you chose something else over them. His face twisted with fury. When this is over, you'll never see them again. I'll make sure of it. Patricia placed a restraining hand on my arm. Don't engage, Maggie. It's what he wants, to provoke you into an emotional response. I nodded, taking a deep breath to steady myself. The next 30 minutes stretched interminably as we waited for the judge to finish speaking with Emma and Noah. I couldn't help, wondering what they were saying, whether they felt intimidated by the formal setting, whether their loyalty to me might be competing with their natural desire for their father's approval. Finally, Judge Calloway returned. Both children followed her into the courtroom, briefly meeting my eyes before taking seats in the gallery. Emma's expression was determined, Noah's anxious but resolute. They sat neither on my side nor Tyler's, but in a middle row, together against the world as they had been for 15 years. Having reviewed all submitted documentation and spoken with Emma and Noah Reynolds, I'm prepared to rule on this emergency petition, Judge Calloway announced. First, regarding the allegations of cognitive impairment, I find no credible evidence supporting this claim. The observation-only assessment by Dr. Kent is dismissed as procedurally improper and potentially unethical. Tyler's attorney started to object, but the judge held up her hand to silence him. Second, regarding allegations of financial impropriety, I find no evidence that Mrs. Reynolds has mismanaged the children's trust. On the contrary, the documentation shows prudent stewardship aligned with the trust's stated purposes. However, there is concerning evidence that Mr. Reynolds has attempted to access these funds for unauthorized purposes. Tyler's face darkened while Vanessa shifted uncomfortably beside him. Third, regarding the home environment provided by Mrs. Reynolds, both children have testified convincingly about the stability, support, and appropriate care they have received for 15 years. They have also expressed, in the strongest possible terms, their preference to remain in their grandmother's custody. Judge Calloway paused, looking directly at Tyler. Mr. Reynolds, while I appreciate that you may have genuine desire to reconnect with your children, the timing and nature of this petition raise serious concerns about your motivations. Emergency custody is reserved for situations of imminent danger, which is plainly not the case here. Your petition for emergency custody is therefore denied. Relief flooded through me, my knees weakening so suddenly that I had to grip the table for support. Patricia squeezed my arm reassuringly. But the judge wasn't finished. However, I do recognize that as the biological father, Mr. Reynolds has certain parental rights that should be respected. Therefore, I am ordering the following. Mrs. Reynolds will retain primary physical custody of both children. Mr. Reynolds will be granted visitation rights consisting of 1 weekend per month and 1 dinner per week, to be scheduled with consideration for the children's academic and extracurricular commitments. She turned to address me. Mrs. Reynolds, you will continue as co-trustee of the Children's Trust, with all major financial decisions requiring documented agreement between both trustees. Additionally, I am appointing Ms. Gabriela Ortiz as guardian ad litem to conduct a thorough evaluation of this case and make recommendations regarding long-term custody arrangements, particularly for Noah, who remains a minor for several more years. Judge Calloway addressed the entire courtroom. Let me be absolutely clear. This court's primary concern is the well-being of these children. Any evidence of attempts to manipulate them, alienate them from either family member, or misuse their financial resources will be viewed extremely seriously. A full hearing will be scheduled in 90 days to review the guardian ad litem's findings and make permanent custody determinations. With a final tap of her gavel, the hearing concluded. Emma and Noah immediately rushed to my side, enveloping me in fierce hugs. We told her everything, Grandma, Noah whispered. About Dad always canceling, about how he only got interested when he found out how much money was in the trust. You were so brave, I told them both, holding them tightly. Both of you. Over Emma's shoulder, I caught sight of Tyler and Vanessa, heads bent in tense conversation with their attorney. Tyler looked up, meeting my eyes with a gaze so cold it sent a shiver down my spine. This battle wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The emergency petition had failed, but he would regroup, strategize, find another angle of attack. Patricia joined our huddle, her expression cautiously optimistic. This is a good outcome for today, but stay vigilant. The guardian ad litem appointment is actually helpful for us. It means another set of objective eyes evaluating the situation. What happens now? Emma asked. Now we document everything, Patricia advised. Every interaction with your father, every visitation, every conversation about the trust. We create an irrefutable record of his true priorities. Noah nodded solemnly. I'll keep my recording app ready. Just be careful. I cautioned. Your father will be on guard now. He knows you're not as malleable as he hoped. As we gathered our belongings to leave, Tyler approached, his attorney hovering anxiously behind him. His public mask was back. In place, voice pitched to carry just far enough for nearby court personnel to overhear. I hope we can move forward amicably, Mom, he said with artificial warmth. For the children's sake. I met his gaze steadily. I've always wanted what's best for them, Tyler. That hasn't changed. Then I'll see you all for dinner next week, he continued smoothly. Wednesday works best for our schedule. Emma stiffened, beside me. I have art studio that night. It's my college portfolio preparation course. Surely you can miss one class for family dinner, Tyler insisted, his smile tightening. My education is important, Emma replied coolly. Just like the trust fund is supposed to be for our education. Remember? Tyler's facade cracked momentarily before he regained control. Thursday, then. Thursday works, I confirmed, placing a steadying hand on Emma's back. We'll see you at 7. As Tyler and Vanessa departed, Noah released a shaky breath. He's still going to try to take us away, isn't he? He's going to try, I acknowledged. But we're prepared now. No more surprises. The drive home passed in contemplative silence, each of us processing the events of the day. When we arrived, I was surprised to find Martha from next door waiting, on our porch with a large casserole dish. Thought you might not feel like cooking tonight, she said warmly. How did it go? We won round 1, I told her, managing a tired smile. But there's more to come. Martha nodded understanding. Well, you've got friends in your corner. The whole neighborhood's talking about Tyler's antics. Nobody's buying his concerned father routine. Her support warmed me, a reminder that we weren't facing this alone. The community we'd built over 15 years, neighbors, teachers, friends, was part of our strength. Inside, we settled around the kitchen table with Martha's casserole, the familiar comfort of home gradually easing. The tension of the courtroom. Noah recounted the judge's skeptical questioning of Dr. Kent with gleeful accuracy, while Emma described how carefully the judge had listened to their concerns in chambers. She asked us if we'd ever seen you confused or forgetful, Emma told E. Me. I told her the only person who forgets things is Dad, like my birthdays and Noah's science fairs. I winced slightly. I hope you weren't disrespectful. Just honest, Emma assured me. She wanted to know if we felt pressured by you to reject Dad. I told her you've always encouraged us to have a relationship with him, even when he didn't. Deserve it. Noah played with his food thoughtfully. The judge asked me if I understood what a trust fund was and if you'd ever explained it to me. I told her you'd always been transparent about it, that it was for our education and future, not for vacations or fancy cars. Good, I said simply. Honesty is always the best approach. After dinner, as the emotional exhaustion of the day caught up with us, Emma and Noah retreated to their rooms for some much-needed solitude. I sat alone on the back porch, watching the last light fade over the lake, trying to process everything that had happened. A text message interrupted my reflection. This isn't over. You've humiliated me in court, but you won't keep my children or their money from me. Enjoy your temporary victory. Tyler, of course. I didn't bother responding, simply took a screenshot for Patricia and our growing evidence file. His anger was predictable. Tyler had never handled defeat gracefully, even as a child. But the naked reference to their money confirmed what we already knew. This had never been about the children's welfare. The next morning brought a certified letter from James Whitfield, Tyler's attorney. Inside was a formal request for complete trust fund documentation, investment records, and expenditure reports for the past 5 years. It was clearly a fishing expedition, looking for any minor discrepancy they could exploit in the next hearing. I called Patricia immediately. They're going after the trust administration angle hard. As expected, she replied calmly. It's their strongest potential argument now that the cognitive impairment claim has been discredited. Do you have comprehensive records? Everything, I assured her. Every expenditure documented, every investment decision explained. I've been managing these funds as if I knew this day would come. Good. Let's compile everything for the Guardian ad litem's review. Complete transparency is our best strategy. The Guardian ad litem, Gabriela Ortiz, called that afternoon to schedule her initial interviews. Her voice was warm but professionally neutral. I'll need to speak with everyone involved. You, the children, Mr. Reynolds and his wife, as well as collateral contacts like teachers, neighbors, anyone who can provide insight into the children's situation. Of course, I agreed readily. We want what's best for Emma and Noah. That's what I'm here to determine, Ms. Ortiz replied, without bias or preconception. Her first visit was scheduled for the following week, giving us time to prepare the house and gather additional documentation. I was carefully organizing medical records when Emma appeared in the doorway of my home office, her expression troubled. Dad's been texting me, she said, holding out her phone. A lot. I scanned the messages, my concern growing with each. 1. Your grandmother is only fighting this because she doesn't want to lose control. She's always been controlling, even when I was growing up. Once you're living with us, you'll have real freedom. Vanessa and I believe in letting young adults make their own choices. I can get you into a better art program than the one you're in. I have connections your grandmother doesn't. And finally, the most concerning. If you help convince Noah that living with us is better, I'll make sure you have access to your portion of the trust fund early. You shouldn't have to wait until 21 for what's rightfully yours. Have you responded? I asked, keeping my voice carefully neutral. Emma shook her head. I didn't know what to say. He's lying about you, and I'm pretty sure offering me trust money to manipulate Noah is illegal. It is, I confirmed, taking a screenshot of the messages. This is exactly what the judge warned against, using the children as pawns. We need to send these to Patricia immediately. Emma bit her lip anxiously. Will this help our case? Absolutely. It proves exactly what we've been saying about his motivations. I handed her phone back, then hesitated. Emma, you know that whatever the courts decide, whatever your father promises or threatens, you always have choices. Your voice matters. She nodded, her expression resolute beyond her years. I know, and I choose you, Grandma. I always will. The following days settled into a strange new rhythm. We prepared for Gabriela Ortiz's visit with the same care we'd approach any important guest. Cleaning the house, gathering documents, ensuring Emma and Noah felt comfortable and unpressured about the upcoming interviews. I reminded them repeatedly, just be honest. Don't exaggerate or minimize anything. Ms. Ortiz is trained to see through manipulation from any side. Tyler, meanwhile, launched a charm offensive in the community. He joined the Parents Association at Noah's school, made a substantial donation to Emma's art program, and began cultivating relationships with their teachers and counselors. It was a transparent attempt to create a narrative of involved fatherhood that contradicted 15 years of absence, but I worried it might be effective with people who didn't know our history. Vanessa took a different approach, suddenly appearing at local charity events and community functions, presenting herself as a devoted stepmother eager to support the children's interests. She even enrolled in a parenting teenagers workshop at the community center, the same center where I'd volunteered for a decade. Their coordinated campaign was calculating and, I had to admit, potentially effective with outsiders. But the children themselves remained unmoved. Dad invited me to play golf with him and some business associates, Noah reported with air quotes and an eye roll. When I told him I don't play golf and have debate team practice anyway, he offered to buy me professional lessons and said debate was unlikely to advance my future career prospects. Emma had similar experiences. Vanessa took me to lunch and spent the whole time talking about fashion internships she could arrange in New York, completely ignoring the fact that I'm going to art school for painting, not fashion design. They're not listening to who you actually are, I observed. They never have, Emma said quietly. That's the difference between you and them, Grandma. You helped us become ourselves. They want to remake us into accessories for their lifestyle. The evening before Ms. Ortiz's scheduled visit, I sat with Emma and Noah in our living room, surrounded by 15 years of family photographs, art projects, and memories. Whatever happens with all these legal proceedings, I told them, know that these years we've spent together have been the greatest gift of my life. Watching you grow, helping you discover your talents and passions, being there for your triumphs and disappointments, I wouldn't trade a single moment. We're not going anywhere, Noah said firmly, but I could hear the undercurrent of anxiety in his voice. Even if the worst happens and the court eventually rules in your father's favor, I continued, we will always be family. No judge can sever the bond we've built. Emma wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking younger than her 17 years. I'm scared, Grandma. Not of the guardian ad litem or the court stuff. I'm scared of Dad. I moved to sit beside her. What do you mean, sweetheart? He's so determined. When he doesn't get what he wants, he gets this look in his eyes. She shuddered slightly. And now he's not getting what he wants. Us, the money. And I'm afraid of what he might do next. Her intuition echoed my own unspoken fears. Tyler had always been resourceful and relentless in pursuit of his goals. The court's rebuke would have wounded his pride deeply, and wounded pride made him unpredictable. We'll be careful, I promised. Patricia has advised us on security precautions, and we're documenting everything. The law is on our side now that the initial emergency petition failed. Noah looked skeptical. But Dad doesn't always follow rules when they don't benefit him. Then we'll be extra vigilant, I assured them. Together. That night, I double-checked every lock and window, activated the new security system Patricia had recommended, and finally fell into an uneasy sleep. Something about Emma's fear had resonated with me, awakening instincts I couldn't quite name but couldn't ignore either. Morning brought a crystal-clear day, sunlight sparkling across the lake behind our house. As I prepared breakfast, I tried to focus on the peaceful scene rather than the knot of anxiety in my stomach. Today's meeting with the guardian ad litem felt pivotal. A neutral professional's assessment would carry significant weight in the final custody determination. The doorbell rang precisely at 10 o'clock. Gabriela Ortiz was a composed woman in her 40s, with intelligent eyes and a notepad already in hand. Mrs. Reynolds? She greeted me with a professional handshake. Thank you for accommodating this visit. We appreciate your thoroughness, I replied, showing her into the living room where Emma and Noah waited. What none of us expected was the second ring of the doorbell just minutes later. I opened it to find Tyler and Vanessa standing on my porch, both impeccably dressed and wearing expressions of practiced concern. Mom, Tyler said smoothly, stepping forward as if expecting to be invited in. We thought it important to participate in today's evaluation as a family. Ms. Ortiz is conducting individual interviews, I replied, blocking the doorway. She hasn't requested your presence today. Vanessa's perfect smile tightened. But surely a family discussion would be more productive. After all, we're all concerned about the children's welfare. Before I could respond, Gabriela Ortiz appeared behind me. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, I didn't schedule an appointment with you today. Tyler shifted seamlessly into his charming professional mode. We understand, but as the children's father and stepmother, we felt it crucial to provide a complete picture. Ms. Ortiz's expression remained neutral. I appreciate your concern, but my process is methodical for a reason. I'll be meeting with you both tomorrow at your home, as scheduled. Today is dedicated to understanding the children's current living situation. Tyler's facade cracked slightly, revealing the frustration beneath. These are my children. I have a right. You have the right to the appointment we've already scheduled, Ms. Ortiz interrupted firmly. Please respect my process, Mr. Reynolds. Attempting to circumvent it will be noted in my report. The warning was polite, but unmistakable. Tyler hesitated, clearly calculating whether pressing further would damage his position. Of course, he finally conceded with artificial grace. We'll see you tomorrow then. As they retreated to their luxury SUV, I caught Vanessa's whispered comment. This is ridiculous. That old woman has them completely brainwashed. Ms. Ortiz, with her professional composure intact, simply noted something in her notebook and returned to the living room where Emma and Noah waited, their expressions a mixture of relief and lingering tension. The interrupted beginning set the tone for a day of careful evaluation. Ms. Ortiz toured our home, examined school records and medical documentation, and conducted individual interviews with each of us. Her questions were thorough but fair, probing our family dynamics and routines without obvious bias. How are decisions made in this household? She asked during our family discussion. Grandma always asks for our input, Noah explained. Like when I wanted to switch from soccer to debate team, she asked questions to make sure I understood what I was giving up, but ultimately supported my choice. Emma nodded in agreement. She treats us like people with valid opinions, not just kids to be managed. Ms. Ortiz made notes without revealing her thoughts. And what about discipline? Consequences when rules are broken? I explained our approach to household responsibilities and reasonable expectations, while Emma and Noah described the consistent but never harsh consequences for missed curfews or neglected chores. Nobody's perfect, Noah admitted candidly. I got caught playing video games after lights out last month. Grandma confiscated my console for a week and had me write a time management plan. It was fair. By late afternoon, Ms. Ortiz had filled several pages with notes. Before leaving, she sat with us in the kitchen, her expression thoughtful. I want to thank you all for your candor today, she said. Tomorrow I'll be visiting Mr. Reynolds' home and speaking with him and his wife. After that, I'll be contacting teachers, neighbors, and other relevant individuals to complete my assessment. When will you make your recommendation to the court? I asked. I typically require 4 to 6 weeks of observation and information gathering, she explained. This isn't a process that should be rushed if we want to determine what truly serves these young people's best interests. As she prepared to leave, Ms. Ortiz addressed Emma and Noah directly. Is there anything else you'd like me to know that we haven't covered today? The siblings exchanged glances before Emma spoke. Just that this is our home. Not just the house, but being with Grandma. She's been our real parent since we were little kids. Dad showing up now doesn't change that. Ms. Ortiz nodded without commenting. I'll be in touch to schedule follow-up meetings. After she left, a tentative optimism settled over us. I think that went well, Noah ventured. She seemed to really listen, Emma agreed. Not like that social worker who already had her mind made up. I allowed myself a cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, the system would work as intended, prioritizing the children's genuine welfare over Tyler's manipulations. But a lifetime of experience had taught me that battles rarely end so neatly, especially when the opponent has resources and determination on their side. We've taken an important step, I acknowledged, but this isn't over yet. How prophetic? Those words would prove to be. The scheduled Thursday dinner with Tyler loomed like a gathering storm. Emma spent hours in her art studio, channeling her anxiety into broad, expressive brushstrokes, while Noah retreated into research mode, preparing for every conceivable conversation, as if it were a debate tournament. Remember, I reminded them as we prepared to leave, document everything without being obvious. Keep responses civil but brief. Don't rise to provocations. Our arrival at Tyler and Vanessa's showcase home in the expensive Lakewood Heights neighborhood Felt like entering enemy territory. The house itself was an architectural statement, all sleek lines and dramatic angles, more resembling a luxury hotel than a family home. Vanessa greeted us at the door, resplendent in a designer outfit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Her smile was picture perfect, not reaching her calculating eyes. "Welcome to our home. The children's home soon, I hope." I chose to ignore the barb as we stepped into a living room so immaculately staged it appeared untouched by actual living. Cream-colored furniture with not a cushion out of place, art that coordinated perfectly with the decor but conveyed no personal meaning. Tyler emerged from what appeared to be a home office, his demeanor all forced joviality. "There they are, my favorite people." He hugged the children with theatrical enthusiasm, then gave me a stiff nod. "Mother." Dinner was a masterclass in performative family harmony. Vanessa served an elaborate meal that she had clearly catered rather than cooked, while Tyler peppered the children with questions about their interests. Questions that revealed how little he actually knew about them. "So, Noah, how's the soccer team doing?" Tyler asked between bites of perfectly seared scallops. "I quit soccer last year," Noah replied evenly. "I'm captain of the debate team now." Right, Tyler. "Recovered quickly. Debate. That's great too. Building speaking skills. Very valuable in business." "I'm actually interested in environmental law," Noah said, after watching the coastal protection case last year. Tyler's smile tightened. "Law's a tough field these days. Oversaturated market." "Noah ranked first in the state competition last month," I interjected gently. His argument on water rights was particularly praised by the judges. Tyler ignored this, turning to Emma. "And you're still doing the art thing?" Vanessa knows some people in fashion who might have internship opportunities. "I'm committed to fine arts," Emma replied. "My portfolio for RISD is almost complete." "Rhode Island School of Design," I clarified, noting Tyler's blank expression. "They've offered Emma a substantial scholarship." Vanessa set down her fork with a delicate clink. "College is so expensive these days. It's fortunate the children have their trust funds." And there it was, the segue they'd been building toward all evening. "Speaking of which," Tyler added, smoothly, "I've been reviewing some of the investment strategies. Very conservative. Almost outdated, really." "The trust was established with specific guidelines," I reminded him. "Capital preservation and steady growth for educational purposes." Tyler waved this away. "Guidelines can be interpreted. With the right approach, we could double the principal before Emma even starts college." "That's not necessary," Emma said, firmly. "I have the scholarship and the trust is healthy as is. But imagine what you could do with twice the resources," Vanessa pressed, leaning forward with practiced enthusiasm. "Travel, better equipment, networking opportunities, or helping family," Tyler interjected. "Supporting your father's business ventures, for instance. Investments that ultimately benefit everyone." Noah's expression darkened. That's not what Grandpa Mitchell intended when he established the trust. An uncomfortable silence fell. It was the first direct acknowledgement of the truth we all knew, that Tyler viewed his children's inheritance as a solution to his own financial problems. "Family resources should support family priorities," Tyler finally said, his voice hardening. "And as your father, my priorities should carry weight." "Even though you've been absent for 15 years?" Emma asked quietly. Tyler's facade cracked, revealing the anger beneath. "I provided financially. I maintained contact. Just because I wasn't changing diapers and attending school plays doesn't mean I wasn't a father." "A father is more than a signature on a check," Noah said, his voice steady despite his trembling hands. Vanessa intervened, clearly sensing the conversation spiraling away from their script. "Let's not dwell on the past. We're looking toward the future now, a future where we're all together as a proper family." The remainder of the dinner proceeded. In a similar vein, superficial pleasantries punctuated by increasingly transparent attempts to discuss the trust fund. When we finally departed, the relief was palpable. That was exhausting, Emma sighed as we drove home. Did you notice how neither of them asked a single question about what we actually want? They don't care what we want, Noah said bluntly. We're just obstacles between them and the money. His assessment was harsh but accurate. The dinner had only confirmed what we already knew. Tyler and Vanessa saw the children as means to an end, not as individuals with their own needs and desires. The following days brought a flurry of activity from Tyler's camp. He enrolled Noah in an expensive private debate coaching program without consulting me, scheduled Emma for portfolio reviews with art contacts, who turned out to be predominantly commercial illustrators rather than fine artists, and even attempted to access their medical records by claiming primary custody, a claim quickly refuted by our attorney. These maneuvers seemed designed to create a narrative of involved fatherhood for Gabriela Ortiz's benefit, but they only succeeded in further alienating the children. Each overreach, each tone-deaf attempt to insert himself into their carefully constructed lives only highlighted how little he actually knew them. Ms. Ortiz continued her thorough evaluation, visiting schools, interviewing neighbors, and observing family interactions. Her professional demeanor revealed nothing of her developing impressions, but I allowed myself cautious optimism when she commented on Emma and Noah's evident academic and social success. They're remarkably well-adjusted given their complicated family history, she noted during one follow-up visit. That speaks to a stable, nurturing environment. 3 weeks. Into her assessment, however, everything changed. I was tending my garden when Patricia called, her normally composed voice tight with urgency. Tyler has filed a new motion, she said without preamble. He's requesting immediate suspension of your trustee powers pending investigation of financial impropriety. My pruning shears clattered to the ground. What impropriety? There isn't any. He's claiming you've made unauthorized withdrawals for personal expenses, specifically substantial cash withdrawals over the past month that can't be accounted for in household expenses. That's absurd, I protested. I haven't made any such withdrawals. According to the bank records he's submitted, there have been 4 withdrawals totaling nearly $50,000 since our last court date. Ice settled in my veins. Patricia, those aren't my transactions. I haven't withdrawn anything except the normal monthly amount for the children's expenses. Then someone has accessed the account fraudulently, she said grimly. And I think we both know who. Tyler. It had to be. But how? I kept the trust documentation secured in my home office, the account information protected by passwords and security questions. We need to contact the bank immediately, Patricia instructed. Report the fraudulent activity and get their security team involved. In the meantime, I'll file our response to Tyler's motion and request an emergency hearing. After hanging up, I sat motionless among my half-pruned roses, trying to process this new attack. It was calculated, sophisticated, and potentially devastating. If the court believed I had misappropriated trust funds, I could lose not only my trustee position but custody of the children as well. Martha found me there 20 minutes later, still staring into middle distance, shears abandoned beside me. "Maggie? What's happened?" she asked, immediately sensing my distress. I explained the situation in halting sentences, the enormity of it still sinking in. Martha's expression shifted from concern to determination. "The weekend Tyler and Vanessa came to check on you last month. They were in your house for at least an hour while you were showing Vanessa the garden renovations. I remember because I was outside watering and saw them arrive and leave." My mind raced back to that seemingly innocuous visit. Tyler had insisted on using the bathroom, the one adjacent to my home office. He'd been gone longer than necessary, But I'd been distracted by Vanessa's pointed questions about the children's schedules and routines. He could have photographed documents, recorded passwords. My voice trailed off as the implications became clear. Martha squeezed my shoulder. You need to check what else might have been compromised. A thorough search of my office revealed subtle signs of intrusion, files slightly misaligned, my desk drawer not fully closed. Nothing obviously missing, but enough to confirm my suspicions. Tyler hadn't needed to steal documents. He'd only needed information that would allow him to access accounts electronically. The bank's fraud investigation moved with agonizing slowness, despite Patricia's frequent calls emphasizing the urgency. In the meantime, Tyler's motion had succeeded in temporarily suspending my trustee powers pending a hearing, exactly what he had wanted. Emma and Noah were incensed when I explained what had happened. He's framing you, Emma said, pacing our living room with barely contained fury. This is criminal. It's calculated, Noah added, his analytical mind already processing implications. He knew a direct custody challenge would fail after the last hearing, so he's attacking your financial trustworthiness instead. I tried to project calm I didn't feel. The truth will come out. The bank will trace the fraudulent transactions. But in the meantime, he controls our trust, Emma pointed out bitterly. And the court might think you're irresponsible or worse. She was right. The damage was already done in terms of perception. Even if the fraud was eventually proven, the shadow of suspicion might linger long enough to influence the final custody determination. That night, after the children had gone to bed, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea gone cold, turning over options in my mind. The legal system would eventually vindicate me, but eventually might be too late. Tyler would use his temporary financial control to his advantage, perhaps irrevocably. The solution, when it came to me, was breathtakingly simple. So simple I almost dismissed it immediately. But the more I considered it, the more right it felt. The next morning I called Emma and Noah to the kitchen table. I need to discuss something important with you both, I began, my decision crystallizing as I spoke. Your father is desperate to control your trust fund, and he'll use any means necessary to achieve that goal. They nodded, their expressions solemn. The simplest way to remove that motivation, I continued, is to remove the prize. Emma's brow furrowed. What do you mean? I mean, we approach the court with a proposal to restructure the trust. The funds would be placed under the exclusive control of a neutral third party, a professional fiduciary institution with no connection to either me or your father. Neither of us would have access or control until you reach the designated ages for distribution. Noah sat up straighter. You'd give up being trustee? Yes, I said simply, because this isn't about control for me. It's about protecting your future security. Emma studied my face. Dad would never agree to that. He'd lose all access. Exactly, which is why the proposal itself will reveal his true motivations. If he fights it, he confirms this was never about your welfare. Noah's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. It's a test he can't pass if his intentions are what we think they are. And the judge would see that, Emma realized, a smile slowly spreading across her face. Patricia was initially skeptical when I called to propose the strategy. You'd be relinquishing significant authority, Maggie, authority that the children's grandfather intended you to have. Mitchell intended the money to secure his grandchildren's future, I countered. That's all I care about. My ego isn't involved. After consideration, she agreed it might be our strongest move. It creates a clear moral contrast. If Tyler opposes a solution that objectively protects the children's interests while removing any question of impropriety from either side, his true motivations become transparent. The emergency hearing regarding the alleged financial impropriety was scheduled for the following week. We arrived prepared with bank documentation, showing the beginning stages of their fraud investigation. Affidavits from Martha and others regarding Tyler and Vanessa's suspicious visit, and our proposal for restructuring the trust. Tyler appeared confident when proceedings began, certain his manufactured evidence had secured him the advantage. That confidence visibly faltered when Patricia presented our proposed solution. Mrs. Reynolds is willing to relinquish her trustee position entirely, Patricia explained to Judge Calloway. She proposes placing the trust under the management of First Federal Trust Services, a respected institution with no connection to either party, until the beneficiaries reach the specified ages for distribution. Judge Calloway raised an eyebrow. An interesting proposal. Mr. Whitfield, what is your client's position on this solution? Tyler conferred urgently with his attorney, his expression growing increasingly agitated. Finally, Mr. Whitfield stood. Your Honor, we appreciate Mrs. Reynolds' proposal, but my client believes that as the children's father, he has both the right and responsibility to oversee their financial interests directly. Even though Mrs. Reynolds has proposed a solution that would remove any possibility of impropriety from either party, the judge pressed. The impropriety has already occurred, Whitfield insisted. The missing funds are being investigated as fraudulent transactions, Patricia interjected. Transactions that coincide suspiciously with Mr. Reynolds gaining access to Mrs. Reynolds's home office. Judge Calloway's expression hardened as she looked at Tyler. Mr. Reynolds, your refusal to accept this reasonable proposal raises serious questions about your motivations. If your primary concern is your children's financial security, rather than your personal access to their funds, why would you object? Tyler's composure cracked. Those are my children. That money should remain in the family, under family control. The money was designated for your children's future by their maternal grandfather, Judge Calloway reminded him coldly. It is not a family asset for general use. The remainder of the hearing revealed the extent of Tyler's miscalculation. The bank's preliminary investigation had already flagged the suspicious withdrawals as originating from an IP address linked to Tyler's home network. His elaborate scheme to discredit me had instead exposed his own deception. Judge Calloway's ruling was decisive. Not only did she accept our proposal to transfer the trust to professional management, but she also referred Tyler's actions to the district attorney for potential criminal charges related to fraud and financial exploitation. Furthermore, she concluded, in light of these revelations about Mr. Reynolds's character and intentions, I am ruling that Mrs. Reynolds shall retain full physical and legal custody of Noah until he reaches majority. Mr. Reynolds's visitation rights will be suspended pending the outcome of the criminal investigation. As we left the courtroom, Emma and Noah walking tall beside me, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. The road ahead still held challenges. Tyler would likely fight the criminal charges, perhaps even attempt to rehabilitate his image and relationship with the children someday. But the immediate threat had passed. He never really saw us, did he? Noah asked quietly as we drove home. Just what we represented. Some people struggle to see beyond their own needs, I replied carefully. Your father has always been one of them. I used to dream about him suddenly becoming a real dad, Emma admitted. But now I'm just grateful for the parent I actually had. She reached forward from the back seat to squeeze my shoulder. You. The weeks that followed brought a gradual return to normalcy. The trust transfer proceeded smoothly, with quarterly reports now sent directly to Emma and Noah, rather than through either Tyler or me. Emma's college preparations accelerated as graduation approached, while Noah threw himself into a summer science program at the local university. Tyler and Vanessa sold their showcase home and relocated to another state, presumably to escape both legal consequences and community judgment. The last we heard, through Patricia's legal channels, they had separated amid financial difficulties. One evening, as summer faded toward autumn, I sat on our dock watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of amber and rose. Emma joined me, sketchbook in hand as always. "I've been thinking about what makes a family," she said, pencil moving thoughtfully across the page. "It's not DNA or legal documents." "What is it then?" I asked, curious about her insights. "Showing up," she said simply. "Day after day, year after year, being present for the ordinary moments, not just the convenient ones." I smiled, watching the light play across the water. "That's wisdom beyond your years." "I had a good teacher," she replied, her pencil capturing the golden light on rippling waves. In that peaceful moment, I realized that what Tyler had sought so desperately, control, possession, financial gain, was nothing compared to what I had received by simply loving two children who needed me. The gift of family, real and enduring, built not through obligation, but through choice, day by ordinary day, for 15 extraordinary years. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.